In the small town of Ridgefield, there was a house on Elm Street that had stood empty for years. Its peeling paint and sagging porch gave it an air of forlornness, but it wasn't until the Carter family moved in that the house's unsettling history began to resurface. The Carters were an ordinary family looking for a fresh start. The house's low price was an irresistible bargain. As soon as they settled in, strange occurrences began. It started with the faint sound of footsteps echoing through the empty halls at night. The sound would vanish when they investigated, only to start again as soon as they were back in bed. The first sign of something more disturbing came when young Emily Carter discovered an old, dusty mirror in the attic. The mirror was ornate and out of place, but it intrigued her. She cleaned it up and hung it in her room. That night, Emily woke to find the mirror reflecting not her room but a dimly lit, Victorian-style room that was not part of their house. Terrified, Emily ran to her parents, but they dismissed it as a bad dream. The mirror was moved to the attic, but the disturbances only grew worse. Shadows seemed to flicker in the corners of their eyes, and the temperature in the house would drop suddenly, followed by a chilling whisper that seemed to come from within the walls. One evening, Mr. Carter was in the basement when he noticed a strange, faded pattern on the wall behind the old boiler. He scraped away the grime and discovered what looked like the remnants of a message scrawled in a shaky hand, "Help us, before it's too late." The discovery shook him, but he couldn't find any further clues about the house's past. The Carters decided to investigate the house's history. They learned that the house had once belonged to the Worthington family, who had mysteriously disappeared in the early 1900s. Local legend spoke of the family's daughter, Eliza, who was rumored to have been a victim of some dark, unspoken tragedy. One stormy night, the Carters were jolted awake by a loud bang coming from the attic. They climbed up to find the attic door ajar and the mirror lying shattered on the floor. In the dim light of their flashlights, they saw something unsettling. The shards of the mirror seemed to form an image of a Victorian girl with hollow eyes, reaching out from the broken glass. Emily, though frightened, felt a strange connection to the girl in the mirror. She began to have vivid dreams about Eliza, who seemed to be trying to communicate a message of despair. The dreams grew more intense, with Eliza begging for help. Driven by a sense of urgency, the Carters reached out to a local historian who had studied the Worthington family. The historian revealed that Eliza had indeed met a tragic end, her death shrouded in mystery. The family had been rumored to have been cursed, and Eliza's spirit was said to be trapped, reliving her last moments over and over. Determined to bring peace to the restless spirit, the Carters performed a séance in the house. As they chanted, the temperature dropped, and the walls began to whisper. The voices grew louder, converging into a single, heart-wrenching cry for liberation. Emily, clutching a locket she had found among the mirror's shards, felt a cold breeze pass through her, and the house fell silent. From that night on, the strange occurrences ceased. The Carters never saw Eliza's ghost again, and the house felt warmer, more welcoming. They remained in the house for many years, and though the whispers of the past faded, the memory of the whispering walls of Elm Street lingered in their minds, a haunting reminder of the shadows that once dwelled within their home. Years passed since the Carters had freed Eliza's spirit. The house on Elm Street seemed to finally have found peace. The family had grown comfortable in their home, and the once eerie atmosphere had softened into a sense of normalcy. Yet, as time went on, the house began to reveal new, unsettling secrets. Emily, now a teenager, had grown more interested in the house's history. Despite the eerie events of her childhood, she couldn't shake her fascination with the old mirror and the story of Eliza. She spent her free time researching local archives, hoping to uncover more about the Worthington family. One crisp autumn day, Emily came across a box of old letters at the local library. They were written by a woman named Margaret Worthington, who had been Eliza's mother. The letters were filled with sorrowful reflections and cryptic references to a dark presence that had plagued their home. The final letter was particularly haunting. "Eliza is no longer with us. The darkness has taken her, and now it seeks to claim the rest of us. I fear our fate is sealed." The letters only deepened Emily's sense of dread, but they also ignited a determination to understand what had happened to the Worthingtons. She shared her findings with her parents, who were supportive but uneasy about reopening old wounds. Nevertheless, they agreed to help her investigate further. One evening, as Emily pored over the letters in the attic, she noticed something strange. Behind the old wooden beams, she discovered a hidden compartment. Inside, she found a small, intricately carved box with a rusty lock. The box had been there all along, concealed by layers of dust and cobwebs. With her parents' help, Emily managed to open the box. Inside, they found old photographs, including one of Eliza, looking more frightened than any child should. There was also a tattered diary with a final, desperate entry written in shaky handwriting. "The darkness is coming for me. I am afraid I will never escape." As the Carters read through the diary, they realized that Eliza had been trying to find a way to break the curse that bound her family to the house. The diary spoke of a ritual that could potentially release the spirits trapped within the walls, but it was incomplete. Determined to complete Eliza's work, Emily set out to reconstruct the ritual. She enlisted the help of local historians and occult experts, piecing together fragments from old texts and legends. The ritual involved a series of steps to confront the malevolent force that had tormented the Worthingtons and to free the trapped souls. On the night of the ritual, the atmosphere in the house grew heavy with anticipation. Emily, her parents, and a few trusted friends gathered in the living room, where they carefully arranged candles, symbols, and artifacts according to the instructions they had gathered. The house seemed to hold its breath as they began the incantation. As the ritual progressed, the temperature dropped sharply, and the whispers returned, more insistent than before. Shadows danced across the walls, and the air was filled with an oppressive weight. Emily could feel the presence of the darkness closing in, as if it were trying to resist the ritual's power. In the final moments, a deafening silence fell over the house. The candles flickered wildly, and a chilling wind swept through the room. Emily's heart pounded as she recited the last part of the incantation, her voice wavering but determined. Suddenly, the whispers ceased, and the shadows receded. The house felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. The air was warmer, and the oppressive atmosphere that had once pervaded the rooms was gone. The Carters, exhausted but relieved, knew they had done something significant. The following days were marked by an unusual calm. The house on Elm Street, once a source of dread, seemed to exude a gentle, comforting aura. Emily felt a sense of closure, knowing that she and her family had finally laid to rest the restless spirits of the Worthingtons. As for the Carters, they continued to live in the house, but they did so with a renewed appreciation for the peace they had achieved. Though they would always remember the haunting whispers and the shadowy past of their home, they found solace in knowing they had helped bring light to a long-forgotten darkness. The whispering walls of Elm Street had finally fallen silent, leaving behind a legacy of courage, hope, and the enduring bond of a family who faced their fears and emerged stronger. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. The Carters' victory over the haunting at Elm Street seemed complete, and life gradually returned to normal. Emily, now in college, had a renewed sense of purpose. She pursued a degree in history with a focus on paranormal studies, inspired by her experiences. Her parents continued their lives with a sense of peace, the house becoming a warm, inviting home rather than a place of fear. But peace, it seemed, was fleeting. 3 years after the ritual, Emily returned home for summer break. The house, though still beautiful, had taken on a subtle, almost imperceptible chill. Emily couldn't put her finger on it, but something felt off. Her parents noticed it too but dismissed it as residual effects of their previous experiences. One evening, as Emily was organizing her old room, she stumbled upon a forgotten journal tucked away behind some books. It was an old leather-bound book she had never seen before. The journal had an inscription on the cover, "For Eliza." Emily's heart raced as she opened it. The pages were filled with sketches and notes, detailing the history of the Worthington family from a perspective she hadn't encountered before. Among the sketches were disturbing images of Eliza, but with one critical difference. The drawings depicted her in various stages of torment, as though the darkness had not only taken her but had been feeding off her suffering. The final entry in the journal was a chilling revelation. It spoke of an ancient curse that had not only bound the Worthingtons but had grown stronger over time. The curse was not merely a force of darkness but a sentient entity that could adapt and grow from the fear and pain it caused. The ritual that Emily and her family had performed had weakened it but had not destroyed it entirely. It had retreated, waiting for the opportune moment to return. Emily's blood ran cold. The realization that the malevolent entity might still be lurking somewhere in the house was terrifying. She quickly shared her findings with her parents, who were both alarmed and skeptical. They decided to keep a close watch, hoping that their previous experience had prepared them for whatever might come next. The uneasy feeling in the house grew stronger as the days went by. Emily began to have nightmares of shadowy figures and dark corridors, often hearing faint whispers calling her name. Objects in the house moved on their own, and cold spots appeared in places where there had been none before. One night, as Emily was researching the journal's notes, she heard a noise coming from the attic. Her parents were away, and she was alone in the house. Summoning her courage, she ascended the stairs to the attic. The air was frigid, and a sense of dread washed over her. She found the old mirror, which had been stored away, lying shattered on the floor again. As she examined the shards, a shadow flickered across the room. Emily's heart raced as she saw the outline of a figure, Eliza. But this time, the figure was distorted, its face a mask of anguish and rage. The figure reached out towards Emily, its eyes hollow and empty. Desperate for answers, Emily searched through the journal again. There was a section detailing a final, hidden step in the ritual, a way to confront and destroy the entity completely. It involved gathering the remnants of the mirror and performing a new ritual in the house's deepest, most sacred space, the basement. The basement, once used for storage, had long been abandoned. Emily and her parents prepared for the ritual, gathering all the necessary items and taking every precaution. The night of the ritual, the house seemed to be holding its breath again, the oppressive atmosphere returning. As they began the incantation, the temperature in the basement plummeted. Shadows danced menacingly around them, and the whispers grew into a cacophony of despair. The entity, now fully awake, seemed to resist with all its might. Emily and her family pressed on, reciting the final, powerful words of the ritual. The air crackled with energy as the shadows converged on the remnants of the mirror. A blinding light filled the basement, and the oppressive darkness was pushed back. The entity let out a final, agonized scream before it was consumed by the light. The house shuddered and then fell silent. The temperature returned to normal, and the shadows receded. Exhausted but resolute, the Carters knew they had succeeded. The malevolent force had been vanquished, and the house could finally be free of its cursed past. In the weeks that followed, the house on Elm Street was quieter and more peaceful than ever. The Carters continued to live there, their lives marked by a deep sense of relief and renewal. Emily's experiences had strengthened her resolve to understand and combat the supernatural, and she graduated with honors, ready to face whatever mysteries the world had to offer. The whispering walls of Elm Street had at last fallen silent, and though its story would be remembered, it would no longer haunt those who called it home. The house stood as a testament to the courage of a family who had faced their darkest fears and emerged victorious. The Carters' victory over the malevolent entity had brought a long-awaited peace to their home. Yet, despite the calm that settled over Elm Street, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was still amiss. It was as if a piece of the puzzle had been left unsolved, a lingering shadow that refused to fade. A few months after the final ritual, Emily, now deeply engrossed in her studies of the paranormal, discovered a new set of documents in the local archives. They were related to the house on Elm Street but had been filed away in a dusty corner, overlooked for decades. The documents included blueprints of the house and sketches of an unknown subterranean chamber that had never been mentioned before. The blueprints showed a hidden room beneath the basement, which was labeled as the sanctuary. The notes indicated that it had been sealed off, with no indication of why or what lay within. Emily's curiosity was piqued. She decided to investigate, convinced that the answers to her lingering questions might lie in this secret chamber. That weekend, Emily and her parents set out to uncover the hidden room. They carefully examined the basement and the surrounding areas, using the old blueprints as their guide. After hours of searching, they discovered a small, almost imperceptible door hidden behind a false wall. The door was old and covered in cobwebs, but it was unmistakably the entrance to the sanctuary. With bated breath, they opened the door, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. They descended cautiously, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the stone walls. The air grew colder as they reached the bottom, and a faint, unsettling sound echoed through the chamber. The sanctuary was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was a large, circular room with a high ceiling, adorned with ancient symbols and artifacts. In the center of the room was a stone altar, covered in strange, indecipherable runes. Surrounding the altar were several large, ornate statues that seemed to watch over the chamber with hollow eyes. As they explored the room, Emily noticed an unusual pattern on the floor. It was a set of concentric circles, each etched with symbols similar to those on the altar. The circles seemed to form a complex design that pulsed with a faint, eerie glow. Emily felt a chill run down her spine as she realized that this was no ordinary room. It was a place of power and ancient rituals. Her eyes were drawn to a large, leather-bound book on a pedestal near the altar. The book was covered in dust but seemed to emanate a strange energy. Emily carefully opened it, revealing pages filled with detailed accounts of rituals and ceremonies performed by the Worthington family. Among them was a ritual designed to seal away the darkness forever. The ritual described in the book was more elaborate than anything they had previously attempted. It involved using the energies of the sanctuary and the power of the symbols etched into the room. The purpose was not just to banish the darkness but to contain and neutralize it, preventing any future resurgence. Emily and her parents realized that this was their chance to put an end to the lingering curse once and for all. They gathered the necessary materials, which they found in the sanctuary's storage, and prepared to perform the ritual. As they began the incantation, the room seemed to come alive with energy. The symbols on the floor glowed brighter, and the air hummed with a palpable force. The statues' eyes seemed to follow their every move, and the shadows danced in response to their words. The ritual was intense and draining, pushing them to their limits. Emily could feel the power of the darkness struggling against them, its malevolent presence trying to resist their efforts. Sweat poured down their faces as they chanted the ancient words, their voices echoing off the stone walls. In the final moments of the ritual, a blinding light filled the sanctuary. The darkness, now fully revealed, writhed and twisted, as if trying to escape its confinement. With a final, thunderous roar, the entity was drawn into the altar's runes, and the room fell silent. The light slowly faded, and the oppressive atmosphere vanished. The sanctuary, now calm and serene, no longer felt threatening. The symbols on the floor had dimmed, and the book on the pedestal was now closed, its cover glowing faintly with a peaceful light. The Carters emerged from the sanctuary, exhausted but elated. They had succeeded in neutralizing the darkness that had haunted their home for so long. The house, now truly at peace, felt like a place of warmth and safety once more. In the days that followed, the Carters decided to preserve the sanctuary as a historical and educational site. They wanted to ensure that the knowledge and history of the Worthington family and the dark forces they had faced were not forgotten. The house on Elm Street, once a place of fear, had become a symbol of courage and perseverance. Emily continued her studies with a renewed sense of purpose, using her experiences to help others confront and understand the supernatural. The Carters lived out their days in peace, knowing that they had faced their fears and emerged victorious. And so, the house on Elm Street stood as a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring quest for knowledge and understanding. The whispering walls, once a source of terror, had finally found their silence, leaving behind a legacy of hope and the promise of brighter days ahead. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you like this story. Years after the Carters' final confrontation with the darkness, the house on Elm Street had become a local landmark, celebrated for its history and the bravery of its residents. Emily had turned her experiences into a successful career, writing best-selling books on the paranormal and using her knowledge to aid others in similar situations. One crisp autumn day, as Emily was preparing for a public lecture at the house, she received an unexpected package. Inside was an old, dusty envelope addressed to her. The envelope contained a single handwritten note. The darkness may have been sealed, but the story of the house is far from over. Watch the shadows closely. Intrigued and unsettled, Emily reviewed the sanctuary's historical records. In a forgotten corner of the archives, she found a hidden message, an ancient warning that the true nature of the curse was to remain dormant until it was least expected. As she pondered this new information, she noticed a peculiar change in the house's atmosphere. The shadows seemed to flicker more frequently, and the whispers, though faint, had started to return. The peaceful silence of Elm Street had grown uncertain once again. Emily understood that while the darkness had been contained, the house held secrets yet to be fully revealed. She resolved to stay vigilant, knowing that some mysteries were never truly resolved, but only postponed. The house on Elm Street, once a symbol of fear, had now become a place of eternal vigilance, a reminder that even in peace, the shadows of the past might still linger, waiting for the right moment to return. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you like this story.